Okay, good morning. And for other meridian locations, good day. Hayom Yom, the 12th of Sivan. Very short one today. Very short. Brevity is the soul of wit, somebody said. Okay. First of all, a little halacha. We say, how many times a day we say, Shechon Nihiyah Bidvorai, to tell us in the Bruch HaShakol that we say the way we say it, the Yud has a kometz, Nihiyah, and not a segel Nihiyah. Okay? There are secrets in that, and I don't know any of them. My father writes in one of his letters, this is the Rabbi Rashab, this is a tough line, cherish criticism, for it will place you on the true heights. Okay. It's like an nesoyin, a difficulty, something that's a test. And we've learned in Chassidus Chassidus explains that nesoyin and nes, and nesoyin and to be elevated are the same languages, the same letters. And so nesoyin have the property of being potential elevators and bringing you to higher levels. So criticism. Accept it and realize it can be and is designed to be a motivator to get to deeper, higher, better places. All right, lessons in Tanya. Starting chapter 4, page 858. Okay, and in this Likutei Moharan, chapter 4 begins on page 156. Okay, so we left yesterday with what I call the cliffhanger, that if Hashem is compared to the sun is 93 million miles away, at least last time I was taught it was 93 million miles away, right? And it needs to be 93 million miles or far away, because if it were here, the sun down here, we would burn up. And in the metaphor of Hashem being the sun, and is that if Hashem were exposed down here, everything would return to the state that it was before the creation, because the creation, as we've spoken about, the Alter Rebbe has spoken about, is created through the metaphor of speech. In other words, there's some distance, there's some contraction from Hashem's essence, some distillation of Hashem's essence in a manner that so-called distills, so it comes down into his mind, his so-called mouth, and his so-called speech. And there we can take it. The creation is created from a certain amount of distance. So, and like the sun has a very, very beneficial, hugely beneficial capabilities for us down here below, without which there would be no life as we know it on planet Earth. But it has to be at a distance. The problem is Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is really everywhere. So how does that work? He's here. Well, wait a minute. He said if the sun were here, we would burn up. So how does this work? That he's here, and yet we don't burn up? That's the question on the table. Perek Daled. Kihine Kasiv, it's written a pasuk in Tillim. Ki shemesh umogen Hashem Elokim. A sun and a shield is Hashem Elokim. Each word. Hashem is the sun. Elokim is the shield. So it's not just redundant. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. Two words for Lord and God. Two words for... They're two totally different operatives. Hashem and Elokim. Pirush Mogen, shield, hunirtak. It's a sheath. It's as if Hashem has taken his energetic, his knife, his cutting power, and put it in a sheath. So this shield, this Elokim is the name of Hashem, which indicates sheathing and shielding of the Shem Havaya. And he's done that, lahogen, to protect, to make a mogen, a protective shield. Sheyochlu habriyes l'sablon, in order that the creation can tolerate him, can handle it and not burn up. K'maimar Azal, our sages have said, this is a Gemara in the Dorim, it says, the sages have said, La'ased lavai, in the future, HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, Moitzia Chama Miminataka, He will take the sun out of its sheath, and Rashoyim nidunim bo, and the evil people will be judged with it. It's as if he took the knife out of it, and now he's got a weapon to destroy them. And the pasuk goes on, by the way, not the pasuk, the Maimon Azal goes on and says that Rashoyim will be judged by it, and the righteous will be healed by it. The same light, healed by it. Just like a sheath, magin be'ad hashemesh, shields the sun. It's a shield for the sun. So kach shem Elokim, so similarly, the name Elokim is magin l'shem havaya, shields the name Havaya, Baruch Hu. Why? What does that mean? It says the Shem Havaya, Yud Ke Vav Ke, that name, Pirushay, its explanation is Shemahava es hakoil me'ayin leyesh. Havaya, Yud Have. The Yud, which we'll speak in a minute, and the Have, being. It brings everything into being, me'ayin leyesh. And the Yud, Mashmeshes al ha'pa'ula. It serves to describe the effect, how he does this, bringing into being. Shehi b'loshen haiva, the tomid. The yud is a grammatical expression, which semantically means continually bringing something into being. How do we know this? Because Rashi explains on the pasuk, Kocha ya'asa Iyov kol hayomim. In the book of Job, it says, so Job would do, ya'asa, he would do all his days. So the word aseh that you see on the page, sin hay, is to do, and the yud, Rashi explains, is continual doing. So he would do all his days. So the yud, same havaya, is continual yud, ave, bringing things into being all the time. And this is, what is this that brings everything into being all the time? This is the highest, the life force, which is flowing from Hashem every single moment, mamish. As the Alter Rebbe, as the Baal Shem Tov darshan for us the pasuk in Tehillim at the very beginning of Shar Yufad Emunah, David HaMelech says, the oilam Hashem yevorecha yitzu b'shemayim. Forever, your word is standing in heaven, and the Baal Shem Tov, this forever means that if Hashem were to stop speaking, so to speak, that the creation would revert back to the ayin which it was before, at a level deeper than creation. So this is continual investment of God in every detail of creation, b'chol rega mamish, every second, every moment, b'chol habirurim, into every single created entity, from Moitze Hashem, from the breath of Hashem's mouth, so to speak, Baruchoi, and the speech of his mouth, and his ruach, his breath, Mahava Oisem, and he is bringing everything into being, Ma'ayin Layesh, from nothing to something, B'chol Rega, every single moment. Because it's not sufficient for the creation to continually exist. I'm putting those words in parentheses. It's not sufficient that for the creation to continually exist, to be extant continually, It can't, the initial, what they call in English, I don't know why, the fiats of creation, those utterances which he said, let there be light, etc., etc., it's not sufficient that he said it once. He has to keep saying it, and he has to. The way that he operates is that he's continually bringing those things into being and rebirthing them all the time, moment to moment. It's just that it's happening so fast that we don't see it. One of the mashalim that I didn't make up, but that was given early on that I like a lot, is like a motion picture. Motion picture is composed of single frames, but they're moving at a speed that is such a speed that what we perceive as continual motion. In reality, what's happening is everything is being flashed on and off, on and off, on and off all the time. So similarly, metaphorically, Hashem is continually doing this act of creation, recreating, and recreating, but our experience is one of a continuous flow. Okay, the Hine, so this is Shem Havaya, continually, Yud Haveh, continually bringing things into being. V'hine b'sidur shivcha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Chachamim ordered, give orders, Seder, ordered their praises, in other words, arranged how to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Perceive, they said about him, the praises of Hashem, HaGodol, HaGibor, v'Hanera. He is great, he is strong, he is awesome, etc. He used these adjectives to describe him. And Pirush HaGodol, when the Chachamim said, what do they mean? The Kabbalists particularly describe God's chesed, midas chesed, by the name Gedula. Gedula is Godel, is great, it's expansive. That's the midah of chesed which continues to flow expandingly, infinitely, without any contraction, without any stopping. That's the Godel, chesed. So he says, Pirush HaGodol hu midas chesed, the ispashtus hachayis, and it's the ispashtus, the flow of the life force, b'kol ha'olamus u'birurim, throughout all the worlds and all creation, la'ein ketz, without end, v'tachlis, and no limit. Li'es birurim me'ayin li'yesh b'kayomim b'chesed chinam, which these creatures, everything that's created, is something being continually brought in existence from ayin to yesh, and remains extant through the effusion of God's midah of chesed chinam, unlimited kindness, and ikras gedula, and that's called Hashem's greatness. Because it comes from the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the greatness meaning his infinite extension, his infinite expansiveness, his unstoppability. This would imply his unlimitability, right? But remember, that's only one midah. So there's going to be an opposite midah, which he contains as well. But Gedula is the unstoppability, endless, without, in his words, without ein kates v'tachlis, with no end, with no limit. That's Gedula of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. From the perspective of his kavod, which is his all-encompassing, transcendent energy, and the way he is in himself, he himself is the continual being of everything. Ki gadol Hashem u'gulaso ein cheker, because great is Hashem, that's greatness, right? Greatness meaning kindness, unbounded limitation. U'gulaso ein cheker, and that's what it says. The pasuk says, to his greatness there is no searching. You can never plummet the depths of it, which means that, two things at least, there's no end to it, and we can't fathom it. We can't fathom it. We can't get our hands around it at all. It's not a function of our seichel. It has no cheker. Cheker is also lashon chakira, like investigation. We can't investigate into it because it's beyond our understanding, but that's the way it is. Therefore, mashbiya gamken chayis v'hishavis ma'ayin leyesh. Therefore, since his gedula is constantly in action, him is the gedula, and there's also the gevura. To him himself is the gedula and the gevura, but the gevura, both of them are always in action. So now, so far, we've described one side, the endless hishavus, the endless bringing into being from ayin liyesh, la'oilamis, to worlds, uberurim, into their creatures, into all of creation, ein case without end. Sheteva hatev lahetiv, because it's the nature of one who is good to do good. And with that, we've reached today's Tanya, having described one side of the two-sided coin, because this just explains it explains that really, wait, if he is going to be everywhere, all the time, everywhere, his essence is everywhere, like in a huge gadol, big, in a really big way, everywhere. So where does the minutiae come? Where do the minutiae come from? Where do the small things come from? And ultimately, why aren't we burned up? So that will be the function of the Shem Elohim, the sheath, which in simple, there's a klal in that's brought in Chassidus from a pasuk in Eov. I think it's in Eov. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure at the moment. It says, "Ubesore echsa elokah." From my flesh, I can see godliness. It's one of the beautiful things that Hashem does.
It is you.
Pardon me?
Definitely Eov.
You. Yeah, okay. From my flesh, I can see godliness. Which means from my flesh, the way I'm designed, we're designed physically, we can understand something of the way God is designed metaphorically. But it also, my flesh means from the whole entirety of what goes on in the physical plane, we can understand this. So in the physical plane, what makes the sun tolerable? Okay, is distant, but it's in the mushal, in the nimshal, the fact that it's distant doesn't have anything to do with the fact that its rays are being impeded. There's nothing impeding it, but there is. In the physical world, it's called the ozone layer. And the ozone layer has an impeding function on the rays of the sun. And that will be what will start tomorrow, the function of the Elokim, the Gavor, the limitation. All right. So God is here. If he weren't here, nothing would be here. It would all revert to nothing. And if he were really here in the sense of the way his essence is in himself, then everything would burn up. So on the one hand, he's really here. And at the same time, there's something limiting his essential expression. And for that, we'll move on that tomorrow. Okay.
Is it something that we should take literally? That the sun, because we do know that the sun has some, could cause some diseases on the one hand. On the other hand, it's full of vitamin D and it's healthy. So, are we to see?
Yes. Go ahead.
Are we to see this lesson today in today's Tanya as some correlating to what the sun can do?
Absolutely. This is the side of the sun that you said. If it were fully exposed, if you were on a beach and got the sun the way it is, you'd be gone. Absolutely.
But then tzaddikim and rishonim equally.
Yes, and that's what he said. Tzaddikim will be exposed when the sun is exposed. Tzaddikim will be destroyed by it. What your question is, how is it that did I say that right? Rishonim will be burned up by it. And your question is, how is it that for that same exposure, tzaddikim will not be burned up by it? That's a question. That's a good question. That's a question which we'll address. They won't need the ozone layer. We won't need the ozone layer. We won't need to have any tzimtzum. The tzimtzum will disappear.
Let's look at it like present times, right? So we're going to assume that we're already in Mashiach times, and we know that the sun can cause diseases, and we also know that the sun can heal. But the same person could have both effects, whether that person's a tzaddik or a rasha. It's not like we're seeing all the Rishayim suddenly get skin cancer and all the tzaddikim suddenly get vitamin D?
Well, the sun hasn't been taken out of its sheath yet. This is L'Asid Lava.
But we are in L'Asid Lava. Maybe the sun has been taken out of its sheath.
I hear what you're saying. We are and we're not. And you know that. Because we don't, I mean, the simple we are is that we have not only capability, but we have incentive and we have giants standing on the shoulders of giants, so we can sense this experience, but we do not have it. When you open your eyes, tell me if I'm wrong, you do not see with your physical eyes Atzmos Ein Sof. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think you do.
I don't know what it means to see Atzmos Ein Sof.
Right, good. That's what you mean.
Okay.
We don't know what it means because we're not there yet.
But that's only because we're not learning enough Geula Sichas.
Well, I don't know about that. We can take that on the side. On the one hand, we certainly do have to learn more in order to develop our ability to live with, in a heartfelt way, this post-Geula experience. But Mashiach, Geula, the Osid Lava are still future events. Otherwise, we would not be crying on the streets, we need Mashiach now. We need Mashiach now. We wouldn't have a world that's falling apart the way it is if Mashiach were here in the literal sense.
Well, that
Mashiach, but go ahead.
I've heard you say this before, but I sent that video. Did you have a chance to watch that video?
Yes,
with
Rabbi Silverberg.
Yeah. No, Rabbi Reuven Wolf, not Silverberg.
Reuven Wolf, I did.
Where he says,
let's not turn this into a discussion of whether Geula is here or not. The fact is not the fact, but the experience that we're having here in the Tanya is there's this, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, that we're still not in L'Asid Lava when the sun actually has been taken out of its sheath and there's no function for the Shem Elokim anymore. Because otherwise we wouldn't be saying all these Shem Elokim that we're saying all the time. But let's leave that. I'll put it aside. Not leave it, just put it aside. But you have to ask yourself, why are all these Shem Elokims that we're using still irrelevant?
You have to ask yourself, what? Why all these Shem Elokim?
Why all these Shem Elokim, which is the Magen and the sheath and the coverings, why are they still relevant if we're in a time
where's the Beit HaMikdash?
And where's the Beis HaMikdash? And where's Mashiach?
It's inside your body.
This is
we want the real thing, dear.
I mean,
you'll have
right.
a real thing if you recognize that it's in your body.
Yeah. There's a Har HaBayit, and you go up there, and there's not a Kodesh Kadoshim. We can get close. We can get close on the other side, but
yeah, now there's no embodiment of Melech HaMashiach on our planet at the moment. Physical embodiment of Melech HaMashiach. Of course we have Mashiach within us. All of what you're saying is true, but it's not true in the way that it will be true when Mashiach is what?
We have Torah Mashiach. So we did have a physical embodiment.
We have Torah Mashiach.
I fundamentally disagree.
All right, like I said, let's put this aside because we will never agree on this. If you can't, let's open our eyes and see that there is no Beis HaMikdash, there is no physical Mashiach here today. So again, let's put this aside because from your perspective, and I get the perspective, but it's not the perspective that we are really, then why are we crying? Why are we crying? Why is the world
That's a question for you.
apart?
I'm not crying. I'm saying Mashiach is here.
Okay. Okay. Then that's the question for us. Noch, what else?
Ubechein.
Ubechein. Oh, you got something? Somebody's got something? Therefore, since Mashiach is here, or isn't here, therefore what?
Be grateful for Hashem's gedula, His kindness.
I would say also be grateful for Hashem's Elokim. That, we do not want to return to Ayin and be swallowed back up. We are grateful that He created us realize we wouldn't exist in the shape that we're in if it weren't for Shem Elokim. But this is getting ahead of the story. Maybe let's have the same conversation tomorrow when we talk about Shem Elokim, when we understand a little bit more about what's the greatness. There's opposites here. The great, not the Gedula, but what's the huge effect and beneficial effect of the ozone layer of the Shem Elokim, so that we don't burn up. And in the future, the ozone layer will be removed, the Shem Elokim will be removed, and we will still not burn up. But that's, in my mind, and in the mind of the Tanya that we're learning today, a later stage. And again, Nelly Shiva, your mind is here. Okay. So this,
the Eov site is 19, Parak 19, Pasuk 26.
Which one?
Here.
The one that we quoted today?
Yeah.
Okay.
If anybody's interested.
Okay. All right. So let's go. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
A beautiful day.
Yom Tov.
Okay. Bye-bye.